accepting it as it came. One morning John did not open his door. The town grew concerned. A neighbor checked on him and found him resting peacefully in his chair. John had passed quietly without struggle or fear. News spread through the town and people gathered with surprise and sadness. They realized how deeply John had been woven into their lives. Stories began to surface. People spoke of things he had fixed, kindness he had shown, in moments when he appeared exactly when help was needed. No one had known his reason, no one had known his promise, but they all felt its impact. In his modest house they found nothing of great value, no wealth, no letters, no explanations, only a simple photograph and a well-kept home. It became clear that John had lived exactly as he intended, with care, discipline, and purpose. The town honored him in quiet ways. A bench in the park was repaired and left unmarked. Flowers were placed near his garden. Children were told stories about a man who helped without asking for anything in return. Though no one ever learned the full truth, they understood enough. John's life was a reminder that meaning does not require attention or praise, it requires commitment and integrity. His promise had shaped a life that touched many without announcing itself. In the end, John did not leave behind a name of importance or a grand story shared loudly. He left behind a feeling, a sense that quiet lives can carry deep purpose, that patience is powerful, that promises kept in silence still matter. And somewhere beyond what anyone could see, John's promise was finally complete. The promise he had made, he knew that patience and consistency were the true marks of a meaningful life. He cherished the quiet and the routine, and he found joy in the small things that others overlooked. Each evening he would return from his walk and sit by the lamp reading a book or reflecting on the day. He felt a connection to the past, and he felt hope for the future. He lived a life that seemed simple on the outside, but inside it was filled with meaning and dedication. Every day he reminded himself of the promise, and he lived in a way that honored it fully. John grew up in a modest home. His family worked hard every day to survive, and John learned early that life required patience and effort. He watched his parents struggle to provide food and shelter, yet they never gave up. John admired their strength and promised himself that he would live a life of honor and care. He often thought about the day he would make a difference for someone he loved. He remembered sitting by his mother as a child, listening to her stories about kindness, courage, and sacrifice. Those stories stayed with him and shaped the way he thought about life. John was a quiet boy. He did not speak much, but he observed everything around him. He noticed the small acts of kindness from his neighbors, and he remembered them in his heart. He saw how people helped each other without asking for praise, and he promised himself he would live the same way. At school, John was attentive and diligent. He completed his work carefully and helped his classmates. When they struggled, no one always noticed his efforts, but John did not mind. He believed that the true reward was in doing the right thing, not in receiving recognition. He spent hours reading books about history, about people who lived meaningful lives, and he imagined himself following a similar path. John had a small group of friends, and he helped them secretly. He would lend books to classmates who could not afford them, and he would share small treats quietly without anyone knowing. He felt joy in these small actions, and he felt that every small kindness mattered. John dreamed of a future where he could fulfill his promise. He thought about the person he wanted to help and how he could prepare himself for the right time. He knew it would take patience and careful planning. He never revealed his thoughts to anyone, but he held them close in his heart. At night, he would lie awake thinking about his goals and the promise he made. He imagined a life of purpose and service, and he believed that one day his actions would bring comfort or happiness to someone in need. John understood that life would not always be easy, but he felt ready to face challenges. He learned to be disciplined and thoughtful. He learned to control his emotions and to be patient. He knew that waiting and preparing was part of keeping his promise. He often walked alone thinking about the lessons of his parents and teachers. He reflected on the importance of honesty, integrity, and dedication. He felt that these qualities were essential to living a meaningful life. John grew more confident in his inner strength. As the years passed, he did not seek approval from others, but he found satisfaction in knowing that he was preparing himself to honor his promise. His childhood and teenage years were shaped by observation, reflection, and quiet determination. Every small experience taught him something about life and responsibility. He kept all these lessons close to his heart, and they guided him as he grew into a young man. John entered adulthood with a calm and focused mind. He chose to work as a carpenter because he enjoyed creating things with his hands. He believed that building something strong and lasting reflected the kind of life he wanted to live. He worked every day with care and precision. His hands became rough from years of honest labor, but he never complained. People respected his work because it was reliable and well-made. John never spoke proudly, About his skills, he believed that actions spoke louder than words. He lived alone in a small house and kept his needs simple. He did not chase wealth or status. He only worked to support his life, and to prepare for the promise he had made. His days followed a steady routine. He woke early, worked during the day, and returned home in the evening. He cooked simple meals and cleaned his home himself. He found peace in doing things on his own. He had a few acquaintances, but very few close friends. He did not feel the need to explain himself to others. Many people wondered why John never married or built a family of his own. Some assumed he was lonely or unhappy, but John felt content with his choices. He knew that his path was different, and he accepted it fully. He spent many evenings walking alone through quiet streets or sitting in the park watching people pass by. He observed families, children, and couples, and felt no bitterness. He felt calm acceptance and understanding. He believed that everyone had a different purpose in life. His purpose required solitude, patience, and discipline. John saved small amounts of money over many years. He avoided unnecessary spending and lived modestly. He did not buy expensive things or seek comfort in material objects. Every decision he made was careful and intentional. He believed that preparing quietly was part of honoring his promise. He also helped people in small ways without being noticed. He repaired broken furniture for neighbors and fixed doors without asking for payment. He believed that kindness should be given freely without expectation. He never shared his thoughts or plans with anyone. He kept his promise close to his heart and trusted that time would reveal its meaning. As the years passed, John aged quietly. His hair turned gray and his movements became slower, but his resolve remained strong. He never lost sight of his promise. He believed that waiting was not wasting time, but preparing for the right moment. His adult life was shaped by simplicity, discipline, and quiet strength. People saw a man who lived alone, but they did not see the depth of his dedication or the strength of his inner world. As the years continued, John became known in the town not for his words, but for his actions. People noticed that things around them quietly improved. A broken fence would be fixed overnight. A loose step on a porch would suddenly be strong again. An old chair would be repaired and left outside a door. John never took credit for these acts. He believed that helping others was part of living honestly and staying true to his promise. He never wanted recognition or praise. He felt that true kindness worked best when it was unseen. Children in the neighborhood felt safe around him. Even though he rarely spoke, they waved to him and smiled when he passed by. John always nodded back gently. He listened more than he spoke and observed the world carefully. He understood pain without asking questions. He sensed when people were struggling and found ways to help without embarrassing them. Sometimes he left groceries at a doorstep. Sometimes he fixed something important without being asked. He never explained why he did these things. For John, these acts were not favors. They were responsibilities tied to the promise he carried inside him. Every night before sleeping, he reflected on the day. He asked himself if his actions honored what he had promised long ago. He was strict with himself, but never harsh. He believed discipline was a form of respect toward himself and toward the promise. Time passed, and people aged. Families moved away. New families arrived. John remained a constant presence. He became part of the background of the town, like a tree that had always been there. People trusted him, even if they did not know him deeply. When someone needed quiet help, they thought of John. He never refused. He adjusted his schedule without complaint. His life revolved around readiness and patience. He believed that the promise would require him to be prepared at any moment. He did not know when the time would come, but he trusted it would. He kept his body healthy, his mind clear, and his heart calm. He avoided conflict and unnecessary drama. He did not involve himself in gossip or arguments. He believed that silence often carried more wisdom than speech. Many nights he sat alone in his house with the lights low, thinking about the past. He remembered the moment he made the promise and the reason behind it. The memory never faded. It remained sharp and meaningful, guiding him forward. John understood that many people lived loudly but forgot their values. He chose the opposite path. He lived quietly so his values could remain strong. Every small act, every quiet decision was another step toward fulfilling what he had sworn to do. Though no one knew it, John was closer than ever to the moment when his waiting would finally make sense. One quiet evening, John sat alone in his house holding an old photograph. His hands were steady, but his eyes reflected deep memory. The picture showed a younger version of himself standing beside a child. The child was smiling with complete trust. In that moment, the promise came back to him with full clarity. Years ago, John had been responsible for protecting someone he loved deeply. A tragic event had taken that child away from his care. John had survived, but the guilt never left him. In the silence of A hospital room long ago. John had made a promise. He promised that he would live a life of responsibility, patience, and service. He promised that he would never waste a day or live selfishly. He believed that honoring this promise was the only way to give meaning to the loss. He never spoke about it, because words felt too small for something so sacred. Every choice he made, every sacrifice, every quiet act of kindness was his way of keeping that promise. The child in the photograph had believed in him, and John refused to betray that trust. He believed that even though the child was gone, the promise still mattered. The town never knew this story. They saw a man who lived alone, but they did not see the weight he carried or the strength it required to carry it for so many years. John never allowed sorrow to harden his heart. Instead, he let it shape his compassion. He learned to understand pain in others because he knew it well himself. That understanding guided his actions and kept him gentle with the world. As the night grew deeper, John placed the photograph back in its drawer. He felt no anger, no regret, only acceptance. He believed he had lived honorably. He believed the promise had shaped him into someone better. He did not seek forgiveness from others. He sought only to remain true to what he had vowed. John sensed that his time was nearing its final chapter. His body was tired, but his spirit was peaceful. He felt ready because he had lived with intention. He had not run from his past or hidden from his responsibility. He had carried it quietly and faithfully. The promise was no longer a burden. It had become his guide, his strength, and his peace. As the final years passed, John moved more slowly, but his routine remained steady. He still woke early and tended his garden. He still walked through the town and greeted familiar faces. People noticed his age, but they also noticed his calm strength. He never spoke of the past and never spoke of the future. He lived fully in each day, accepting it as it came. One morning, John did not open his door. The town grew concerned. A neighbor checked on him and found him resting peacefully in his chair. John had passed quietly without struggle or fear. News spread through the town, and people gathered with surprise and sadness. They realized how deeply John had been woven into their lives. Stories began to surface. People spoke of things he had fixed, kindness he had shown in moments when he appeared exactly when help was needed. No one had known his reason, no one had known his promise, but they all felt its impact. In his modest house they found nothing of great value, no wealth, no letters, no explanations, only a simple photograph and a well-kept home. It became clear that John had lived exactly as he intended, with care, discipline, and purpose. The town honored him in quiet ways. A bench in the park was repaired and left unmarked. Flowers were placed near his garden. Children were told stories about a man who helped without asking for anything in return. Though no one ever learned the full truth, they understood enough. John's life was a reminder that meaning does not require attention or praise. It requires commitment and integrity. His promise had shaped a life that touched many without announcing itself. In the end, John did not leave behind a name of importance or a grand story shared loudly. He left behind a feeling, a sense that quiet lives can carry deep purpose, that patience is powerful, that promises kept in silence still matter. And somewhere beyond what anyone could see, John's promise was finally complete.